Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is Dominic Palmer, the Superintendent of the Merrick School District. This is our third community forum out of 3 community forums. Tonight's forum is focused on our alternative voluntary remote model. As we did with the other forums, we are going to be looking at questions at the end that were submitted anytime today and during this meeting, so that as you hear things, you'll have an opportunity to also send in some questions. Thank you all for joining us. Also with us is members of our Board of Education and Building Administration staff on the Zoom meeting. And also present with me today is Dr. DeCenter, our Director of Student Services, Dr. Karp, our Assistant Superintendent, and Dr. Kaplan, our Board of Education President. And of course, our technician, who you can't see, Brendan. Okay, let me open up with the first slide.
Can I just?
Oh, sure, Dr. Karp.
So I just want to thank everybody who is joining us tonight. We recognize that this is a very big decision for our families to make, and so we hope that you will get a really strong overview tonight of what the voluntary remote program is going to look like. We believe that what you're going to hear about is a really, really solid instructional program that we're looking to add to as we move along. So I've already looked at the questions. I think many of them will be covered in the presentation that the superintendent is going to give, but certainly I'll look through the questions again, and anything that's not been answered, I'll be happy to pull out and ask the superintendent. So thank you for being here tonight, and with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. The alternate voluntary remote model is being offered as an option for students and families who are unable or uncomfortable to attend an in-person instruction. It is not the same model that we will use if all students must go into a remote model. Families are asked to make a trimester commitment for instructional continuity no later than August 21st, tomorrow. Again, we're asking for a commitment for a trimester because we believe is best interest of everyone. Requests to return to the in-person model can be made in writing to the building principal before each trimester. That's roughly November 20th and March 12th. Students cannot move in and out of the program outside of those dates. This will disrupt your child's education, as well as the education of other children. Individual requests to move back into the in-person model before the start of the trimester will be made on a case-by-case basis if a family has a significant reason for making the move. Any family interested in having their child join the remote model after the beginning of the trimester should put their request in writing to the building principal and will be considered on a case-by-case basis. Individual student health concerns will take precedent over all other decisions. I also caution you that if you don't make the decision at the start, there may or may not be room in the remote program for students who are late entrants, other than those spots that would be dedicated for students with significant health problems. If the decision is made to move a student back into the in-person instruction following a trimester period, parents may request busing. So opting out of busing when you're in the remote program doesn't mean you won't be able to get busing if you come back after the trimester. You will have an opportunity to get busing after the trimester. The same level of care will be taken when placing a student back in our in-person program as is typically taken when creating positive classroom environments for students. Things such as teaching style and peer relationships are taken into consideration. I want to clarify what that means. At some point, we talked about placing every student in the class that is enrolled in the school district and then leaving that spot in the in-person class if a student is in the remote program. After discussion, we realized that that might be problematic because if students leave the remote program at different rates, it may make class sizes in the in-person program very lopsided. So what we will be doing instead is students in the remote program will not be placed in a specific classroom. We do have all your information about requests for in-person learning that was put in last year. If your child comes back in the in-person program, that information will be taken into consideration as we also look to balance the classes after the first trimester. Dr. Clark?
This model will be staffed with certified elementary classroom teachers hired by our district. Placement letters will be sent out indicating the name of the remote teacher. Students will be enrolled in a district-wide grade level class. That means students that would normally attend any of our buildings would be in one grade level taught by a remote teacher. Teachers will provide live instruction for 2 hours a day in grade level district-wide cohorts. Instruction may be delivered in both whole class and small group formats. Teachers will provide students with daily and weekly assignments utilizing available web-based resources. Core instruction will include all subject areas: reading, writing, math, science, social studies, and social emotional lessons. The curriculum materials utilized in the program will be many of the same materials the students would be using if they were in school. The remote teacher will closely work with the grade level teachers in the district to ensure alignment to the topics taught during the school year. Students will be assessed utilizing various curriculum-based standardized measures as though they were in person. Feedback will be provided to students during live whole group instruction, small group meetings, individual conferencing, and through our web-based platform. Extra help will be available to all remote students starting in October. Students in the remote program will receive the same report card as the students in the in-person program.
And Dr. Karp, I just want to note that the extra help starting October, that is similar to what we do with our in-person program in any school year.
That's right. We start in October.
Special area participation opportunities will be provided to students throughout the week. Special area lessons in art, music, Spanish, and technology will be delivered through a blend of independent activities, recorded lessons, and live instruction. More specific information regarding special areas will be forthcoming. Students will participate in virtual physical education twice per week. Students who qualify for AIS services will participate remotely. Students with special needs will receive instruction by a special education teacher to directly address IEP goals. These services will be delivered to the greatest extent possible within a remote environment, and every effort will be made to ensure that these services do not conflict with the content area instruction. Students will likely participate in a multi-grade remote APEX structure. More specific information about this program will be forthcoming. What you see on the screen is a sample schedule of a day of a student. Each grade level will have a different schedule. However, this is representative of the blocks of time for core content area instruction, independent work, time allocated for specials, support services, as well as lunch.
Grade level supply lists include materials needed to use at home. Please make these items available to your child. Remote teachers may ask you to purchase additional materials as needed for the grade level specific program. Students who will be participating in the voluntary remote model will have all the necessary instructional materials, including their math books and science books. Parents and guardians will be contacted about how these materials will be distributed to the students. Students who require a district iPad or laptop needed to participate in this program will be loaned one to use. Please indicate this need when completing the commitment form.
Okay, we move to the presentation pretty quickly. We can move on to questions.
Okay, so the first question, how many students per teacher for remote learning per grade level?
So we are dedicating one teacher to each grade level with a maximum group size of 50 students. Those 50 students would be divided into 2 cohorts, so the teacher could have classes, basically has 2 classes. They could have 2 classes of up to 25 students in each class.
If you don't like the teacher that your student is assigned to for remote only, can you switch?
There's only going to be one teacher in the per grade level in the remote only program, so there'll be nobody to switch to.
And are the remote teachers part of the normal teacher staff in Merrick, or are they from other school districts or states?
No, it's our staff. People are volunteering to work in that program.
How do families opt into the remote learning alternative? Is there a link to fill out?
We sent home a survey Monday to all families
Last Friday, I think it was last Friday.
within the last few days. Yeah, I guess actually it was Friday. To all families with a deadline to submit by this Friday. If there's a specific family who did not receive them, please email your building principal, and then we'll make sure we get the link back out to you as soon as possible.
When will virtual school meeting begin?
Same day as the in-person school on September 8th.
Will there be a principal of the remote program? If so, who is it?
The remote program will be overseen by the assistant superintendent, Dr. Karp.
Will there be specials? How will they work?
I think we just talked about the specials
Yep.
in the PowerPoint.
Will there be homework online or in books?
Jill, you want to take that?
So it will probably be both. Students will have their math books and their science books, but everything is also online. So the teacher will decide, with all of the students what's best to demonstrate their ability to, show their understanding of the work.
Great. Will there be individual conversations with teachers?
There will be some opportunities for students to conference with teachers.
The proposed daily schedule has multiple Zoom sessions of 30 minutes each. As a working parent, it is difficult to assist multiple children with logging onto Zoom multiple times a day. Have you considered instead offering 1 2-hour Zoom session?
I think it's interesting, when we asked for the feedback on the virtual program back at the end of the previous school year, one of the common feedbacks we got was that kids were having a hard time with longer Zoom sessions, which lasted at the time up to an hour. So we felt that 2 hours certainly wouldn't be a good use of students' time. They would really exhaust. So we broke it up into those units of half an hour. But I just want to emphasize that schedule that was put up now, and it's in the FAQ, is really just a sample schedule to give you a rough idea of how the program might work. As the individual teachers are working with their classes, they may make adjustments as they think are appropriate for their class and the particular lessons that they're doing.
Will students be able to participate in APEX?
I think in the presentation, we talked a little bit about, we are in the process of setting up a model in order to have that happen.
A few other questions in this email related to specials, which are already answered. What technology will the students utilize for assignments while in the alternative remote program?
So it's probably going to be similar technology that we used in the spring. We use Seesaw, Microsoft 365, we use Padlet, so it'll be very much the same technology online programs that we used in the past.
And last question from this family, if the in-person model is shut down due to COVID and all students switch to remote learning, will that impact the students in the alternate voluntary remote learning program?
I would make the assumption that it will definitely impact them, but I can't really tell you at this point how that would happen.
Will remote students have access to doing orchestra, percussion, music lessons?
We're reviewing how to do that remotely with those students and how much of our professional staff time is available to do that.
What about students that require co-teaching services and small group setting as determined in their IEP?
So IEP services,
Yeah.
If a student requires services as per their IEP, the school district will provide those to the greatest extent possible within a remote environment. Small group instruction based on content area lessons will be determined on an as-needed basis by the remote teacher.
If a parent opts for the alternate remote option, would that affect the child's academic record negatively or cause the child to get held back by a grade level next school year?
No.
Will the remote learning sessions be live and interactive or pre-recorded?
Well, we're looking at 2 hours a day of live instruction as the baseline for the program.
Will remote schoolers have a chance to virtually meet their teacher prior to the start of the program in order to develop some kind of rapport?
I'm not sure if that will happen, but that's basically, since their whole program is remote, that's what the whole first day, I'm sure, will be about, is developing that rapport.
How will the social emotional needs of remote schoolers be met? What are you doing to make sure that these kids feel connected to each other and also to their individual school community?
So our remote classes will run very similar to our in-person classes where, like we spoke about at our previous two forums, teachers and our mental health staff are developing community building lessons to begin the school year after the emergency closure and students' time away from school. In addition, mental health supports, social emotional supports will be handled in an identical manner as it is within the school district in our in-person program. Teachers can support students and families. Teachers can make a recommendation to the building support staff for them to follow up, and families can also reach out directly to their building support staff where their child's homeschooled for any type of mental health or social emotional support.
There's also an aspect of that question that kind of hit me that I think is really worth us working on throughout the course of the school year, and I'm not even sure if this is what the person meant, but that's the idea of keeping kids connected back to the general community, and in my mind, specifically from the school that they originate from, and hopefully the school that they go back to, either in the second and third trimester or next school year. So I think it's something that the school staff will have to look at as how to keep those kids connected to their home school.
How will sixth grade work for the remote alternative program? Will all subjects be taught by one teacher?
Yes, each grade level will have one teacher assigned to it.
Can you tell us the teachers' names?
We don't have them yet. We'll be finalizing the assignment someplace late next week, and then notices of teacher placement for the remote program will go out at the same time as notices for the in-person program.
Are children in the remote program still part of their regular school?
Basically similar to what I just said in the last question is that, you know, we're going to maintain them as students of their home school. So for legal purposes, they will be members of that school. And for practical and emotional purposes, I'm hoping that wherever possible, kids return to that school in the second trimester, if not the third, if not next school year.
What training are you requiring for the remote teachers so they are sufficiently prepared to teach a model they have never taught before?
So our teachers did have training last semester in the spring, and they're going to...
Hang on a second, Justin.
And just to be clear, if someone sent in many questions and I only pick out one particular one, it's because the others have been addressed already.
With regard to training, our staff was trained last year, last spring, while they were using and before they were using the online programs. We will be using the same programs in the fall. So any teacher that might be teaching a grade level that doesn't have the training will receive it before they start, and because they haven't been named yet, but we feel pretty confident that all of our teachers will have that experience.
In the past, Chatterton has had 2 grades at recess at the same time with security guards at each playground. Will there be an increase in the number of security guards now that many more children will be outside at the same time?
I don't know why one would assume that there'll be many more children outside at the same time. That's not likely at all.
Okay. These are repeats, so I'm just...
You guys have 90 viewers.
Why is the remote learning only 2 hours a day with a teacher? In Florida, they are doing 6 hours remote with their teachers.
Well, that's an interesting question. So I happen to know a little bit about Florida because my daughter is a special education teacher in Volusia County, Florida. Florida's actually had pre-existing a statewide virtual program. Teachers who teach and are employed by the state directly. Each county, I guess it's going on a couple of years now, and they are mostly county-wide school systems, had a freestanding virtual program. Those kids actually had school put off 2 or 3 weeks now in her county, while they figure out what to do with everybody else. So a place like Florida had a pre-existing program. Our issue is that we don't have teachers sitting around waiting to start another program with. So we are working within our staffing and our budget to build a strong program for the remote program.
Will the grading system for the in-school students versus home remote students be the same?
I guess if you're referring to the report card, yes. I think that grading is very much related to the tasks at hand, so it'll be responsive to the tasks at hand.
If you opt in, do you have to renew every trimester?
I don't think we came up with a definitive answer on that. I think that we're going to finalize whether we'll just make an assumption that after the trimester, you're in unless you request to be out. But I think as we get closer, we'll make a final decision on that. But if the other part of that question is there any way that you'd be eliminated from it because you didn't make a decision or something like that? No, if you're in, you're in.
Okay, there's a question about having students placed into a virtual class for a 2-week quarantining period. Any child needing to remain home should be treated in the same manner as an extended absence has been, treated in the past. Why is this being suggested?
Because it's not like the past.
If we opt to return in January or sooner, how will the transition work in returning to school on an academic level? How often will the district remote teacher be in contact with the in-school teacher?
So we haven't worked out the amount of times they will meet, but they will be working together to ensure that the remote teacher of a specific grade level and the grade level teachers in the buildings are working on the same or similar concepts so that when there is a transition for students, one way or the other, either from remote to in-person or in-person to remote, that is seamless as possible. Also, before a transition, we will definitely have the remote teacher and the in-person classroom teacher have a conversation so the student feels that they are on the same path as they were when they were in the other program. So there will definitely be regular communication.
When will the first trimester be over? Can I switch my son into in-person learning for second trimester?
So roughly around Thanksgiving, the first trimester ends. I think in the PowerPoint, we indicated a decision date more or less around November 20th. And yes, I would hope that most people will move their children back into the in-person model after the first trimester.
Can you expand on the class size? How will one teacher have 2 groups at the same time?
They will have 2 classes that meet at different times in the day. So a teacher works a much longer day than the amount of live time that they're going to be giving to either one of the groups. It's very much a secondary school model. You know, a 7th grade teacher has multiple classes during the day.
Last year, there were instances where teachers and or students had internet issues. Will each class session be recorded?
We have no intention to record sessions.
Please ask about technology support in real time. So if someone is having a technology issue, who can they call in that moment for assistance?
So that was something that was discussed during the summer session, when we're doing all these planning meetings. And I think what there will move towards is making a number, like a hotline number to our tech available to help out parents.
What happens if more than 50 students per grade register for the remote model? Will another teacher be added?
I don't know.
What is the
Just
plan?
to expand on that, because I don't want people
Yeah,
being
okay.
flippant about it, is the reality is that on, I think, what's Monday, the 24th
24th.
of August, our ability to expand a program that'll start on September 8th beyond the 7 teachers that were lining up for this program is really difficult. If we have to add teachers to the program and the board can find the funds to do that, and I will comment on that in a second, then I don't think that extra group of kids will be able to start on September 8th. And I do want to make a comment about money, because I don't want people to feel like the remote group is going to get shortchanged on this. The program that we're talking about has the full cost of 7 experienced teachers in it, which is a very significant amount of money. As you probably read in Newsday, seen on the news, or in other media sources, the governor has more or less made it clear now that they're holding back 20% of our state aid. We had the first small check held back. We had a small aid check due for a specific kind of aid. It was only $50,000. That was held back a couple days ago. We have been now told that unless the federal government backfills the state coffers, that will continue to happen. We are looking at a cut of $1.3, almost $1.4 million in state aid if this happens. So we are coming upon difficult times. It would be financially difficult to add teachers to the program, but more importantly, in the short run, it'd be very impractical to try to find the appropriate people to go into that program quickly.
What is the plan for distribution of text workbooks for children? Will we be picking them up at elementary school or Board of Ed office?
We haven't finalized details on that, but I'm going to make the assumption it'll be at the child's home school.
Yes.
That will organize a couple of days when parents can make that pickup.
Will students be tested similar to in-person learning?
Yes, we intend to have our typical beginning of the year assessments to gather information about where students are. And then it's going to be up to the teacher on how to best assess students in the remote program. Like Dr. Palmer said earlier about the report cards, all students and teachers will be learning off the same standards, the New York State standards, and so that's how they will be assessed, demonstrating their ability to apply these standards.
We are concerned it will likely be disruptive for children who are sick or on quarantine from the in-school learning program to continuously join and leave the remote program. How will this be managed?
I think if it becomes problematic, we'll have to look for a different solution.
Also, are these teachers that you are putting on for full remote have recent experience in the grade levels in the district they will be teaching?
We're primarily working towards teachers who have taught the grade level or recently taught the grade level, but all of them will be very experienced teachers if they're teaching in a different grade level.
Will AIS Zoom sessions ever be scheduled during regularly scheduled sessions, or are they incremental to the 2 hours of live instruction?
So AIS has to be it has to be supplemental to the core instruction, so it can't be scheduled on top of it. It has to be scheduled in addition to it. So any student who receives AIS support or IEP support will get that in addition to the core instruction of 2 hours.
What are you going to do to ensure that the remote students have a connection to their school and their classmates? in some cases, have been with them for 6 years.
I think that's really what I kind of heard in somebody else's question before and responded to, that's something we're gonna have to look at the building level to make sure that connection is
Difficult.
kept.
Yeah, it's difficult. Once we elect virtual learning, when will we receive information on which computer programs we will need available?
So everything is internet-based, so you will not have to purchase anything. We will let you know everything is through students' Clever account, so everything is linked up to that. We will send you all the Clever information. It is all the same from the spring, but you will receive it all, if not before the first day of school, on the first day of school.
Why can't
Can
remote?
I just jump in? There was also a question that was asked, I don't know, along the way, about what kind of computer do I need? And I think it's reasonable to think that a good basic computer, basic laptop or desktop will be sufficient for everything we do. Somebody asked about a Chromebook. You know, a good, well-functioning Chromebook should be sufficient. And I'm looking at our technologist while I'm saying this, and he's nodding his head yes and giving me a thumbs up. So your basic home computer should be sufficient to operate.
Are we going to get the names of the classroom teachers even if we chose the in-home learning for the first trimester?
So that kind of was mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that no, we've changed our plans. We're not going to specifically assign kids to classes that are in a remote program, and that's because when students are coming out of the remote program, it may be very uneven, and we're going to have to appropriately place them across their grade levels so that we don't disbalance classes. But, you know, keep in mind, we do have all your prior requests and disrequests, interests, who you like your kids with, and the building principals will certainly consider that when they make the placements.
Will a child need to take any additional testing to confirm progress during the virtual program before opting into live school?
No.
Okay. Okay, this has been answered already. We answered whether or not teachers or students will be given a classroom teacher as well before. We've sort of covered this, but I'll ask the question, why can't remote teaching time for teacher contact be made equivalent to that of hybrid learning? It's a completely different model.
In a hybrid model, well, actually, comparing to a hybrid model really doesn't match up. Comparing it to a full remote model, if we're all out, then we have the full staff available for the kids. In this model, basically, the full staff is still tied to the in-person schooling, and we need to stretch our staff and add some places in order to achieve this alternative model.
Okay, I'm just going to read this question. If you opt to go in person during the first trimester, can you then decide to go in person for the second trimester and then possibly decide to return to in person during the last trimester?
So I think that was 3 in-persons.
I think it was.
So in-person is the default position. In-person schooling is what is the default, where we would expect any student to be unless a family specifically requests that they're in a remote program.
Why does there seem to be a capacity limit for the alternate remote program?
There is a capacity limit for the alternate remote program because we only had so much staff to dedicate to the program. And, you know, based upon the initial survey, we should be well within that capacity limit unless a very significant additional number of parents opt for that program than originally indicated that they might go that way.
Can a child be rejected from opt-in second or third trimester?
No, the default position is your child is best off and best likely to be in an in-person program. So your child can always come back. We always want them back in the in-person program.
Woodmere virtual learners are live streaming into classes, elementary to high school. Can our students live stream?
When we reviewed this during the summer in our various subcommittees, that concept of live streaming elementary students into a classroom as a way of instruction was rejected as really detrimental for our kids. We just don't think that a typical first grader can benefit from just being live streamed into a classroom.
Okay, I'm also not going to address questions as to why a different state is doing what they choose. We chose to do what we felt was best for our community. How does a teacher work with or help a student on a one-on-one basis if they need extra help on a specific math lesson or writing lesson? Is it done before or after the normal live session?
It depends on, how the structure of the day is set up. It depends on the needs of the student. Like we said in the presentation, the teacher is going to be working in small groups and individual conferences if that's what the student needs. They'll also be providing feedback on a lot of our platforms to provide that opportunity to give, written feedback to students. And we're also offering extra help, starting in October, so they'll be able to get one-to-one support then.
In remote learning, can you see other kids on the screen?
I think one of the things that we found that people really liked back in the spring was that kids had that sense of community because they were seeing each other in this gallery view on Zoom. So I would assume that most classes will be done in that manner as well.
Okay, when does first trimester end? I know that you covered this. You said right around Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Okay, so if we see that again, I'm just going to pass over it. If we had the first trimester as remote only for all, okay, we're not, so I'm going to skip over that. If there are more than 50 children per grade, how will you decide who gets to do remote learning? As you just said, you might not be able to accommodate all of them.
While I do not believe that we're going to be in that circumstance, then we would have to prioritize students who have a medical vulnerability themselves, students who have someone in their immediate household who has a medical vulnerability, and then the rest of the slots would go beyond that. And that's basically the State Education Department's guidance for alternate programs. But again, I really want to emphasize, unless something radical happens, I don't really think that we're going to go over the capacity. And to give you kind of a feel for it, 50 students at grade level is approximately 25% of the grade level. So we weren't getting anything close to that in feeling from parents about going to a remote program.
What is a Clever account?
So I'm gonna take that.
And how does one sign up for a kindergarten student?
So all of our students and all of their families will be provided with access to all of the web-based programs that we are asking them to use for instruction. So for example, if we were to ask a student to access Nearpod or Seesaw, we would have a teacher account created and then individual student accounts created, and you will receive those logins. Clever is a program that houses and creates a single sign-on for multiple programs. So if your child, such as a kindergartner, is using or is asked to use 5, 6, 7, 8 web-based programs, we don't expect them to be able to log in and remember logins for all of those programs. They would be housed in a program called Clever, which once you sign on, and you will be given a sign-on as well as a badge to scan on your laptop's camera, and it gives your child access to all the necessary instructional programs.
Okay. Joe, I know that you answered this. Will teachers across districts between home schools and remote teachers stay on a schedule? Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, yes, they will. This way, when a child comes back, they're basically where they should be.
Yes.
I will address this next one, because you've already covered it. If students who are quarantined are in the remote program and that is disruptive, then we will have to come up with a different solution for that. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for that nice comment. Thank you. We're trying to answer every question you have, so thank you for that. Will an iPad be sufficient for learning?
You know, for our lower grade students, absolutely, it is the device that we provide for our students one-to-one in our kindergarten and first grade classrooms. As students get older, what you would need to add to an iPad is simply a keyboard, whether it's a keyboard on the screen or a wireless keyboard, because there's more writing expected of them.
So basically, second grade and up, it's probably not gonna work as well as, say, a laptop or a desktop computer, but K and 1, it's comparable to what we have in school for the children.
Absolutely.
When will we know if we've been accepted into the remote program?
So basically, on Monday, when we get back, we're gonna go through, the people who requested in, and within a few days of that, we'll know if, we hit the numbers and where we're at. I think the default is to believe that if you put in the response on the survey, that you will be in the program unless you are contacted specifically that you're not.
Will you keep Lakeside students together, Birch students together, and Chatterton students together to provide some similar community to previous years? This is being done by grade level across the district.
Correct.
So if there are multiple children from schools in the same grade, that would be the community that's created. Okay, we've covered this question. The live stream, like Hewlett Woodmere, was helped to maintain a connection to homeschool, not for regular instruction. Okay, all right, well, take that on.
Am I picking this up that, I just wanna stop for a second. Are people, is the issue of people also sending in questions through YouTube? Is that what's going on?
I don't have comments on.
Okay. Yeah, there's.
Comments are on YouTube, because someone just texted me a picture.
Yeah, that's what I'm, yeah.
But people are also sending messages here,
Yeah, so,
same people, so.
all right, so
they
just,
have
just
this
be,
address.
to be very clear to anyone, we're not monitoring the YouTube comment section. You have to send it to the Merrick Reopening at merrick.k12.ny.us email address. That's the email that we're going through right now, and we don't have access to the YouTube feed.
Okay, will students have time on the Zoom to speak amongst themselves and engage in social conversations?
So that will be organized by the classroom teacher. I know that in the spring, the teachers had separate breakout rooms where students were able to have book talks and, work on projects virtually together, so I'm sure that our teachers will have that as well.
Do you have contingencies in place if there is an outbreak in the area? If there's an outbreak, we're gonna go by the guidance given to us by the health department, and then put into play one of the models that we've planned for the last several months. So I feel comfortable answering that. Okay, one more time, where can I get the remote form to fill out? Sorry, when is the deadline again?
So the deadline is tomorrow evening, and if you did not receive the email from me, I think it was last Friday, please email your child's principal, and we will make sure they send out the link to you. So please do that this evening, so that tomorrow we can get the link out to you.
One more time, I didn't hear the response, but will an iPad be sufficient for second and fifth grade?
Probably not, because the kids will need to do some typing. You could add a keyboard to an iPad, correct, Dr. Center?
Yeah.
But again, you know, that makes it a little more cumbersome to use. So with a keyboard, probably, it's not gonna be the programs that are gonna be the problem with that.
No.
It's just gonna be the typing.
So one more time, the 50 kids could be divided into groups of 25. Within the 25, will we try and keep kids from similar schools together?
Probably not, because I think the way the initial surveys came out, it might be uneven in different places.
Okay,
I just wanna go back to the computer piece again.
yes.
And just say, again, any family who's entering in the remote program who would like to borrow a laptop computer in the older grades, the second and up, or or an iPad in K and 1 from the school district that is readily available, we will provide a device for you.
Right, so if there's any concern, we have devices, so don't hesitate
Exactly.
to make sure that you're covered technological.
In the spring, about a third of the students in the school district by the end, had borrowed devices.
Can you please allow kindergartners to meet their teachers in person in an outdoor setting when picking up materials?
We'll work on the logistics of how to do that. What's that?
With one teacher.
Yeah.
Okay, we covered IEPs and co-teaching. If a student comes back after remote learning, will they be in their home school?
Yes, definitely, they will go back to their home school.
What will a kindergarten day look like, understanding that they require more hands-on teaching? What will the independent lessons look like, and how much parent involvement will be required? Probably a significant.
Yeah, I would suggest that basically for a kindergarten student, a parent really would have to expect to be hands-on almost the whole day, because in a typical kindergarten class, the teacher really is moving about the classroom, providing hands-on assistance to children throughout the school day. Now, there will certainly be some children who will need minimal assistance from their parent in that setting, but there will be some children who will need their parent to be with them for all the work. And that may extend through first, second grade, and I assume the older the children will get, the less hands-on parents may need to do. They may need to do some check-ins. You all know your own children. You know if they are students who are highly self-motivated and focused, or if they are a little more distractible, and depending on that will really make a difference about how much support they need from the parents. Throughout the spring, we heard from many parents that even within their own household, they would have one child who thought remote learning was the best thing ever and and just blossomed in it, and they had other children who actually struggled in it. So every child is different, and parents will have to make that judgment themselves.
So I guess I'll address this next comment. Why wasn't a more robust plan put together for remote learning? Other states are successfully putting together remote plans, Jersey, for example, to keep teachers, school staff, and students all safe. Why did the board not choose this option for all if it is the safest option? So I'll cover the first part of it and then the second part of it quickly. We believe this is a robust plan. Hours upon hours have been put in putting together this plan with the help of every constituent group in our community. So I deeply, feel badly that you don't believe that this is a remote plan. We happen to feel that it's the best that we can do under the circumstances, and at the same time, we're still looking to add things. Again, why didn't we choose another option? That has been talked about over and over again. We understand this is an individual decision for your family, and we hope you make a good decision that fits your needs. But we appreciate the comment. Has the Merrick School District Legal Counsel in any capacity reviewed the reopening plan prior to submitting to the state, along with any and all revisions and updates since then?
No, I don't believe our legal counsel has.
But our plan was approved by the state.
Right, our plan was accepted by the Department of Health and accepted by the New York State Education Department.
Yes or no, are we following the guidelines for social distancing as we understand them to be, as they've been outlined?
We are following, it's more complex than that. We are following the whole package of preventive risk mitigation measures. So the mask or face coverings, the social distancing, and the use of barriers when social distancing is not possible. So it's really a package of mitigating measures that we are following.
Is there a minimum number of students that need to be met to even keep this running?
1 per grade?
If there are very little students in one grade, will there be one class per grade? Please confirm no change. Will one grade be mixed with another grade to consolidate due to low enrollment?
I don't foresee mixing kids in the multi-grade level, but if there's so few students that a teacher has basically only one cohort or one class worth of children, a teacher might be asked to teach 2 classes. But we are the board's committed a teacher or grade level. And unless something radical happens tomorrow night, or really Monday when we go through the results, I think we're gonna have a teacher or grade level.
Outdoor recess, will the children be required to wear their mask outside? If not, why not? Also, if a parent chooses that their child not take off their mask, will that be okay?
So I'll ask the last one first. Parents can opt for that, and we will be on the phone with them if their child refuses to help us with maintaining that. So as we continue deeper into this discussion, our discussion even yesterday was not looking at recess as one thing or the other, meaning that it's a giant mask break, but you have to then socially distance and have, kids way apart from each other and minimize the activities. Or the other side of it, everybody's gonna wear a mask the whole recess period of time and then be able to do a couple other things. So I think as we move forward, we're gonna look at it not as one thing or the other, but how we can use that period of time to benefit kids as much as possible.
Okay, this next question made me smile. If there is a snow day or unscheduled close for in-school, will remote still continue on that day?
I think if school is closed, school is closed.
Yeah.
You and your family and your children will get to sleep in unless you make them shovel the driveway.
Again, for people who want to, and I'll read the question, I'm happy to talk to you offline, I may have even already. Why is the board so comfortable with having less than 6 feet of distance between each child in person? Other districts are doing remote. We feel that with all of the mitigation practices that we're putting into place, we feel that this is the best way for us to proceed. Again, we asked the community their intent to send their children to school. And over 80% of people wanted their children to come back to school 5 days a week. That's what the board is attempting to do for 80% of the parents. And for the other families that are not comfortable, we're providing an option. That's why we're proceeding in this way. And we do feel that we work very hard to make things as safe as they can possibly be. Have protocols been ironed out for kids who suffer with allergies? If discussions were scheduled to be held in next week's board meeting, how is that fair to parents who must make a decision by tomorrow on whether to remote or send in person?
So the board will basically review that on Tuesday. It'll really be up to them. If we change policies, I think any parent going into this has to go into it with assuming that the policy in existence right now is the policy that will be in existence on September 8th.
Okay, I think we answered this, but I'm just gonna do this one more time. If over 50 kids are enrolled in a grade level and my student cannot be accommodated, what are our options? Homeschooling? If so, how do we start the homeschooling process?
Yeah.
So the homeschooling process the request goes through my office, the Assistant Superintendent for Instruction and Educational Services. Basically, you have to send an email or a letter indicating your interest, and then my office will send you information that you need to complete, and then you have to submit an IHIP, which is an individual plan for your child for each trimester that you're going to be homeschooling. So we'll give you all the information, all your guidelines that you need to follow to homeschool your child.
Will there be a Zoom Meet the Teacher night?
That's actually a great question. A teacher asked me, teacher is considering teaching the program, also asked me, how will parent-teacher conferences work? So I'm pretty sure that there would be it would be a meet the teacher night. That would be pretty, easy for the teacher to pull off, because they would just Zoom with you. And then parent-teacher conferences, I think are gonna have to be finessed a little bit more, because, to get the timing right for those. But I definitely foresee that probably the same nights that we do them in school, the remote teachers would be doing their meet the teacher night, and in the same time frame as parent-teacher conferences, we would be doing parent-teacher conferences in the remote program as well.
Who will substitute for the remote teacher if they are sick? Would there still be live instruction on those days?
Yeah, we would use our staff of daily building subs to, the daily building subs are substitutes that work in our schools every single day. We would use them, as the substitutes for the program, and there would be live instruction.
Okay, so I'm going to address this in the nicest way I can, but it's going to be the last time I'm going to address it. So the survey went home was not addressing people's preferences for what type of model they wanted us to offer. The survey was gauging the intent of parents to send their children back to school in various models. Over 80%, I think it was 82 or 83% of parents said they would send their children back if we were open 5 days a week. 89% said they would also send their children back if we were opened hybrid model. I don't know how to explain it any nicer than I can. The statistic that matters in that regard is that over 80% wanted to send their children back 5 days a week. And again, the board, the administration is not forcing anybody to make that decision for your family if you're not comfortable with that decision. That's why we're trying to do the best that we can to have an alternate model. Will the 2-hour class Zoom time allow for arrival routines like saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Will birthdays be celebrated? How about holiday parties and school spirit days?
I don't think we can talk the exact details of what will happen, but a teacher is gonna run a class. This is gonna be remote.
Right. And the teachers in the spring did special days and honored kids, and so I expect that all to continue.
There's a question here, maybe, Jill, you can respond to. For lower school students, how will reading assessment happen? In school students will get the opportunity to be assessed by teachers for a reading level and expect in-home reading. How will the remote child be assessed with reading level and get reading books at home for reading?
So, we were just actually talking about this earlier today. We believe that the teachers will be able to assess reading levels virtually. We're gonna have to get a little creative, but we can project books onto the screen and have students read, and the teacher can take a running record as the child reads. We have subscribed to multiple online platforms, so students have access to books virtually, online. And I believe many students have books at home, access to the library. We could get virtual books from the library. So there are many different ways that we can put books in the hands of students at the very minimum virtually.
Okay. That's all we have for the moment.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I'm sorry, I'm watching things pop up.
Oh, okay, hang on.
I guess there's,
So this is a question that doesn't seem to relate to remote learning, and it has to do with mask breaks in the classroom. So we'll answer this one at a different time.
okay, so back to what, we'll give people a couple seconds here. What do you got? I think you're responding to that one. So the question is, let's confirm teachers will find their grade level approximately 10 days prior to the school year. How will the teachers, you took away what question as I was reading it.
Oh, I'm
Basically,
sorry.
how will the
I'm
teachers
sorry.
prepare because they're likely to be out of grade? Well, first of all, I wouldn't assume that they're likely to be out of grade. Second of all, because of all the turnover for the remote program as well as everything else, there's a number of our teachers in the in-person program who will be getting final notification of what their grade level is. It is horribly, it is another victim of the pandemic. Everything that has been done from the spring through into the next school year will be very different than it has ever been before, and not exactly as we would like it. So hiring started much later. We've had quick turnover. We're seeing things develop as we go. So yes, teachers will be prepared. They always do it.
To the next question, principals will be addressing how open house will be planned for in-person learning, so stay tuned for information on that. Okay, and with all due respect, I'm not debating in this forum the hybrid model versus what our district has decided to do. I appreciate your feedback. I respect it. Again, please make the best choice for your family. Yes, this is a great suggestion. Can you ask the individual PTAs to include the remote kids and parents in their programming in any way that they do it? Okay, again, we're moving away from questions for the virtual model, so maybe you just want to take one. In-person learning teachers will reduce materials being passed around. Does that mean that students will be using screens in school more than in prior years?
Not necessarily. I mean, they'll be using their own pencils instead of a bucket of pencils in the middle of the table. They'll be using their own crayons, that kind of thing. That's where we're going to get away from sharing of materials. If you went to any of our classrooms in February of last year, you would see in most cases a communal amount of supplies, especially in the younger grades. That's all going to be eliminated. Students will bring their own supplies. They'll use their own supplies.
Okay, we're just going to take a few more questions because we only have two more. If a family decides to go with remote, and then a month into school, the entire district goes remote, do those children in the remote alternative option who are not receiving a full day of teaching get to go back into their homeschool remote class?
We haven't really finalized that answer yet.
Again, if there are not enough spots opened, there's going to be given priority to children with medical needs. That's it. I mean, this is not the last opportunity for people to ask questions. You can always send your questions in. We have a board meeting also on Tuesday night. We always welcome community participation in the board meetings. We're happy to listen to your feedback. And I don't know, I think that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Covered it.
And, if you have any other specific questions, you can certainly email Dr. Karp, myself, Dr. DeSena. I don't want to make this cumbersome, but if it's basically involving special education or technology, email Dr. DeSena. If it's more curriculum and instruction, Dr. Karp. And anything that's kind of odd and out of category, you can certainly email me. Also, you can reach out to your building administration if there's any questions about the live program and that you really want to get answers on. All parents will be receiving a great deal of information as we roll forward in the next couple of days about arrivals and dismissals, about lunch and recess, about all those programs. That's all gonna be coming out in the next few weeks. Much of it is in a similar time frame that would happen in any year. Some of it, because decisions are being made as we approach the school year, will be happening as they are completed. I'd like to thank again the whole community for their participation, their thoughtful questions. I hope that we've communicated a great deal of information. I know that people will continue to have questions, and we'll answer them as we can. I'd like to thank our board for being supportive and thoughtful in developing all of our programs in the past, and certainly as we go through these most challenging times. Our administration and our staff, I have total confidence that whether your child is in a remote program or the in-person program, they will deliver an education that will be comparable to anything you can expect in the best school districts in our community. So thank you and good night. Take us away, Brendan.